today's video is going to be on the Synastry analysis of Will and Jada-Pinkett Smith, as I said that I would discuss it. So I'm going to get straight into it. I have, short introduction, okay? I can't skip the short introduction. I have calculated the Synastry overlays, meaning looking at how each of their charts aspects the other person's chart. So this is Synastry overlays or house overlays. And this is the first chart that I'm going to analyze. So you can see Jada-Pinkett Smith's placements over Will Smith's placements. You're going to see them with the red. So Jada-Pinkett is going to have the red planets and Will Smith the blue planets on the chart. And then I'm going to look at the composite chart a little bit, and then I'm going to look at the Guna Milan or the Astro-Hitchhiker compatibility analysis, which is a very typically Vedic concept. So getting straight into it, what I can say about the Synastry overlays or the chart overlays, that's the more correct way to put it, the chart overlays. The first thing that stands out to me is the fact that they do have some really powerful conjunctions. So we see that Will Smith's Mars is conjunct her moon. This is not a surprise because, well, they both have the Leo energy. So he has Mars in Leo, she has moon in Leo, although I'm pretty sure her moon is in Purva Falguni and his Mars is in Magha Nakshatra. But it doesn't matter, it still counts as a conjunction. In Vedic astrology, as long as two planets are in the same sign, it's a conjunction. Now, I have obviously talked about the Moon-Mars conjunction many times before in my videos about relationships, and I've actually done one big lengthy video specifically about the Moon-Mars aspects and how they play out in relationships, and I've also talked about famous examples there, like Jody Maggio and Marilyn Monroe and a bunch of other examples. So I will be linking that video in the video description just for you to see it if you are curious about it. Just thought I would mention it. But briefly, this conjunction is one that creates very, very strong physical attraction between two people, especially when it is the man's Mars and the woman's moon. And I've also mentioned there, I've actually mentioned this also in another video where I talked about fertility between couples and how this is also a fertility boosting aspect. So it's one of those aspects that make two people really want to get together and even potentially have kids, which in their case is obviously true. They got married and they also had kids together. So no doubt, I'm sure that on some subconscious level, that was a strong motivation behind why they got together in the first place. So this already is a very strong aspect that shows attraction and also deep emotional involvement and intertwining. And I would also mention that it's not surprising in light of what happened at the Oscars with the incident with Chris Rock that Will Smith is, got very protective and territorial about her, because this is usually how this aspect plays out. The Mars person becomes very protective of the Moon person, and they tend to have this almost kind of enmeshed sort of energy with one another. It also, in my mind, would probably explain why he maybe felt like his masculinity was being questioned or threatened when the incident happened, because according to more recent interviews, as far as I have heard, Jada-Pinkett said that they weren't even living together at the time of that incident, but technically they were still married. So I don't know. No doubt, in any case, this aspect definitely heightens sensitivities towards everything that happens to the other partner on both sides, because again, it creates this very tight connection, enmeshment, however you want to put it, where the two people are very much concerned with what happens to the other person, to the point where they almost feel like, if one person takes a hit, the other person also feels it, So yeah, would explain some part of that. I've actually also talked about Will Smith in another video, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember if it was the one about bad childhoods, maybe, but I do remember that. Let me check again. Yeah, he has Mars in the fourth house. So I've mentioned that, this also explains him having a bad childhood, and that he actually said in an interview he witnessed violence. But in any case, digressing, because obviously this is not about Will Smith's psychology and, the incident that happened at the Oscars. Moving on though, not only do they have the Moon-Mars conjunction, they also have his Jupiter conjunct Moon. So they already have these two aspects that I have mentioned in that video where I talked about fertility enhancing aspects basically between two people, meaning they have the Moon Mars and the Moon Jupiter. So these two, you will see them often between couples who end up having kids together. You will see them either in house overlays or planetary inter aspects between their individual charts, or in the composite chart. So I haven't actually looked at their composite chart, so I'm gonna see what pops up there as well. They might have even more of this energy going on. But yes, this would definitely explain, feeling comfortable with one another, feeling like they're compatible and wanting to, join efforts. And also Jupiter has a benevolent, tolerant attitude generally towards the moon person. So in this situation, since it's his Jupiter and her moon, it would explain why maybe he was the one who was always cutting her slack in the relationship. Would explain a lot. And we also see that they have, so her Moon is conjunct Mercury. This is interesting because Moon conjunct Mercury, not to say that this produces a person who's a philanderer or anything, but conjunct Mercury, it shows the Moon is more restless and would explain to some extent, wanting multiple experiences, so maybe a desire for multiple relations. And in fact, both of them have Moon conjunct Mercury. And I remember ages ago, way before the incident happened, that I saw some articles about them online where they actually said that they were in kind of an open marriage, right? So, and this is also something that kind of bothered me after the Oscars incident, that a lot of people were giving her crap for apparently having had an affair with some guy, but the truth was that both of them had affairs. So as far as I have read, they were in some kind of an open arrangement marriage thing. So yeah, but won't dwell on that. Apparently it didn't work out for them. I won't get into the biology of why that doesn't work out oftentimes, but I think you can guess for yourselves. And so they both have the Moon Mercury energy, and her Moon Mercury is conjunct his Mars and his Jupiter. So again, this is really a binding little cluster here, because they have two major planets on each side conjunct to the other person's chart. And it also falls in his fourth house, which I think is important to notice, because the fourth house is again, he has Mars in the fourth house, so this is a sensitive point. The fourth house is the relationship to the mother. I don't want to get Freudian here, but it is the relationship to the mother and how the native perceive the mother and issues surrounding the mother. So no doubt her Moon and Mercury falling in his fourth house would have really hit him in the feels, maybe touched and activated a very sensitive part of himself, which on the one hand, of course, was bound to make him become emotionally attached, but on the other hand, again, could really amplify sensitivity to her emotions first and foremost, because, it's her moon and also her speech, which is Mercury. So again, nuances and layers that keep revealing. And again, in retrospect, considering the Oscar incident, they all fall into place. They all make sense. All right. Aside from that, they also have the Sun-Venus conjunction, which is great, very positive. Again, it falls in his fifth house. Again, this shows a genuine affection. It probably shows that he felt really loved, especially right from the beginning, felt comfortable around her and felt like she really cared about him for who he really is, as opposed to, let's say, having a Venus ascendant conjunction, which maybe would have caused more projection and idealization. Here we have the Venus-Sun conjunction, and again, it's also her sun. So it's like they have sun to sun conjunction, and it's also her Venus and her sun are conjunct his sun, which would definitely show that he felt like he was getting a boost from this relationship, ego-wise, right? Like, she's very warm and affectionate and accepts him for who he is. And aside from that, we see that they also have their seventh houses respectively activated. They have, they have opposite ascendant. So again, this would definitely add to, a strong attraction. So he has ascendant in Taurus, she has ascendant in Scorpio, right? So they are directly opposite. And this, basically means that their ascendants are falling in each other's seventh houses. So no doubt they would see each other as, balancing each other out, the perfect ideal partner. But again, it would make me think that there could have been a little bit of idealization here as well. And we see also Jupiter, so her Jupiter is falling in his seventh house. So this is really strong, a strong placement for compatibility. And again, from his perspective, this would have seemed like, she's bringing opportunity, she's bringing expansion, optimism, joy, wealth as well, and balancing his energy because it's activating his seventh house. Aside from this, all right, first of all, she has a Moon-Mars conjunction. Not a Moon-Mars conjunction, a Mars-Rahu conjunction, and it falls in his ninth house. And I'm just going to focus here a little bit on her psychology. So having a Mars-Rahu conjunction, this is also something that Elon Musk has and a lot of other famous people have had. This conjunction makes a person very materialistic and very ambitious, and it can definitely, I've talked about Rahu conjunctions in a video where I actually talked about narcissism, and in my opinion, Jada-Pinkett definitely shows high narcissistic traits. I don't know if she's like full-blown NPD, I'm not a psychologist, but ever since the incident happened, in fact, I remember right after that incident happened at the Oscars, thinking that she's probably the kind of person that would pretend that she doesn't even know who he is if she knew that she could get away with it. And lo and behold, recently she had, these interviews on podcasts or whatever where she said that actually they hadn't even been living together at the time of the incident, which is not the same as saying that she doesn't even know who he is, but it's kind of like in line with the same kind of attitude, meaning she's trying to somehow distance herself from him and his actions, as if to say that, hey, whatever he does, that's not my problem, that's not my responsibility. So I don't know, like it seems to me like she's a person who's definitely very ambitious and, materialistic. This is just picking up, even if I hadn't even seen her horoscope, I would have just picked up this vibe from her generally. But now that I see her horoscope and seeing this conjunction, it would definitely explain a lot. And also, can I just say, in light of more recent studies that I have read about different branches of Vedic astrology, that Jupiter shows the husband in a woman's chart, but according to some branches, it's actually Mars that shows the husband in a woman's chart. And having a Rahu-Mars conjunction is one of those things that would tend to show a famous husband, a husband that, well, first of all, could already be famous at the moment that you meet, but also whose fame increases as you start to get into a relationship, because Rahu is falling after Mars as opposed to before Mars. But again, won't dwell on this too much. In any case, in her horoscope, it would explain having this very hyper-ambitious, hyper-materialistic attitude, or maybe specifically feeling drawn to men who, have fame and status. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I remember coming across an article that said that Jada-Pinkett Smith was actually involved with Tupac before Will Smith, and I don't know if you heard about him or something, maybe some people haven't, but he was a famous rapper who died very young in the 90s. So, it's like the more you read about her, the more it kind of shows that she's definitely drawn to the bling, and like the money and the flashiness and whatever in a man. And also, yeah, so like I said, it explains her psychology. Aside from this, what I also noticed having to do with Will Smith's psychology, which also kind of explains a lot, is that he has Ketu conjunct the sun. Because if you look at his horoscope, so he has Rahu in Pisces, in 16 degrees Pisces. So that means Ketu is exactly opposite that. So it's conjunct the sun within 10 degrees. That's a pretty strong conjunction. And I've actually, again, done a video specifically about the sun-Ketu conjunction and how it can show promiscuity and a tendency towards instability. So based on, the stuff that I've read online, he was definitely the first one who kind of stepped outside of their relationship, trying to have, an open marriage and all that. But what this also shows is that he is very insecure. He probably has like crippling insecurities and may have struggled with low self-esteem, especially early on in life. Ketu conjunct the sun is one of those aspects that shows kind of an absent father, or a father that can be absent in various ways. Either was physically there but didn't really support the child, or sometimes was even actually separated from the family. So I don't 100% know his full situation. I do know that I've seen an interview where he actually said he saw his father hit his mother to the point where she bled or something. So there was some trauma connected to his parents, definitely. And this is the part that I see through Mars being in the 4th house. But with respect to how absent he was, I'm not sure. Maybe his parents divorced when he was relatively young. Or again, it could just show that his father didn't pay much attention to him, or didn't really take the time to build up his confidence and his self-esteem. So this could have led to issues down the line. But what I have seen with men, especially who have Ketu Sun conjunction, is that they actually tend to put on a front of being super confident, super confident and leaders and extroverted and, generous and all that. So they try to really make up for it. In fact, they start to inflate the sun energies to kind of make up for the inner insecurity that they have. So sometimes it even potentially can show narcissistic traits, but I haven't actually seen it as like literally narcissism. I've just seen it as, a lot of like crippling insecurity and a strong desire to mask that insecurity. Maybe, again, when there are other aspects, it could literally lead to narcissism. I don't think that this is 100% his case, though. Just my 2 cents. But, again, it would explain why, again, the incident at the Oscars triggered him to such an extent. Because, again, my impression was that maybe he felt like his masculinity was being questioned somehow, so that probably triggered him. And also, in addition to Ketu being conjunct, so his Ketu being conjunct his sun, it's also conjunct her sun and her Venus. So this is important because technically, again, I have done videos about this when the nodes of the moon, like Ketu and Rahu, are conjunct different planets, what results you might get. I haven't done it for all planets, I think. Maybe I will at some point. But I've talked about the main ones, right? Because there are gender-specific interpretations here. In a heterosexual couple, when you see Sun conjunct Ketu, it's technically seen as positive when it is the woman's sun, and it's seen as negative when it is the man's sun. So in this situation, because she's the one whose sun is conjunct his Ketu, that would seem to be a positive aspect, because according to traditional interpretations, it would decrease her ego as the time goes by, except that I think my impression is that the woman is so full of ego that she basically just decided to break away from him because rather than lower her ego, or more like she felt like maybe the relationship with him was humbling her in some way, or that, I don't know, she wasn't getting enough attention as an individual, and that may have actually added to why she decided to distance from him as time progressed. But another indicator or another potential aspect that could have led to this, the same thing, is his Ketu conjunct her Venus, which is also happening there at the same time because he has Ketu in Virgo, she has Sun and Venus in Virgo. So Ketu conjunct Venus is seen as negative when it is the woman's Venus, especially because this generally plays out as the woman becoming less affectionate, less feminine as time progresses within this relationship. And also, it just shows that her affection actually decreases towards the person whose Ketu is conjunct her Venus. So this could also very easily explain what happened between the two of them, that she just became increasingly less attached or less interested in this connection. And aside from this, let's see what else. I also see that her Saturn is conjunct his ascendant, so her Saturn is falling in his first house. This again, I mean, I didn't want for this to sound like, psychoanalyzing Will Smith, but this is something that I just pick up from his energy, that he seems to be like the kind of person who needs like a tough partner because he was abused as a kid. These people who never really worked through their traumas, and because one of their parents, I think in his case, most likely the father figure, one of the parents was abusive, they grow up with this subconscious desire to fix that relationship, so they choose partners that remind them of the abusive parent just so that they can constantly try to impress this partner now that basically becomes like a substitute parent. You know what I mean? This is the way that I would psychoanalyze him. And in fact, I would probably psychoanalyze him like this without even having looked at his horoscope. But now that I look at the horoscope, it would definitely explain a lot. The fact that he chose a person whose Saturn falls in his first house, that sounds, that's pretty telling, basically. But also, let's not forget that Saturn aspects are very binding. And this conjunction is very tight. Like, her Saturn is in 13 degrees Taurus, his ascendant is in 14 degrees. So this is a really strong conjunction, which would definitely explain why they were together for a very long time. And in fact, speaking of Saturn, you also see that her Saturn is also square his Mars. Now, according to traditional Vedic astrology, I shouldn't even be looking at the squares, but I do look at them because after basically over a decade of studying tropical astrology charts, I just couldn't help but notice that they do play out. So yes, and in some situations, it also happens that when you see the square in tropical, there's also an actual aspect there in Vedic astrology, but more like a single-sided aspect, which is because Mars aspects the fourth placement from itself. So if Saturn is sitting four placements from Mars, then Mars will aspect Saturn, but it's not quite the same as saying that it's a square, the way that it's defined in tropical astrology. In any case, I digress. I see the square here happening because his Mars is in Leo and her Saturn is in Taurus. So again, I have done a video about the Mars-Saturn aspects, and I have actually named this aspect like the hard aspects between Mars and Saturn. It's one of the worst aspects to have in like synastry and long-term relationships because it brings this constant tug of war between one person's desire to control, which is usually the Saturn person, who is usually the Saturn person, because Saturn is the person who wants to control everything, and they kind of act like a wet blanket in a way. In a way, like they dampen the Mars energy, the Mars' enthusiasm, and sometimes the Mars person tends to react even violently to Saturn's activities and stuff. So this would definitely explain at least some of their dynamic. And it's also actually happening as a double whammy, basically, because his Saturn is also squaring her Mars. Her Mars falls in Capricorn. If I am checking correctly, let me check again. Yeah, it's in Capricorn, also conjunct Rahu, and his Saturn is in Aries. This is not as strong, but I still take them into account. So I don't take them into account the way that tropical astrologers do. I just look at the signs. I don't look at the orb difference. Basically, as long as the signs are square, and I'm not going to get into detail here, but I have talked about this in other videos where I explained how the square works in depth and why it plays out the way that it does. It has to do with the signs and the energies of the signs, not exactly the orb difference. Obviously, the tighter the orb is going to be, the stronger the aspect is going to be felt. But as long as the signs have the energy of the square, that's how they're going to play out, right? So meaning any planet in Aries is going to be square any planet in Capricorn, because the energy of the square comes from the energies of those signs clashing, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, in any case, they have the double whammy. So they have mutual Mars-Saturn squares, which would definitely create frustrations and arguments, and both of them probably trying to control one another. And see, it explains why the polyamorous thing never worked out. I think if they would have consulted an astrologer, they would have known from the beginning that it wasn't for them. And in fact, if they would have consulted an astrologer, the astrologer may have said, just don't get married, you know. But let me not dwell on that. So, in any case, moving on. Speaking of astrologers and stuff, another thing that I want to say is that Will Smith has Moon in Vishaka, which again would further enforce him having a traumatic childhood. This nakshatra tends to show substance abuse, abusive parents as well, which seems to be true for him. And what I also notice if I look at the tropical perspective is that her Mars is also square his moon. So her Mars is in Capricorn, square his moon in Libra. So this would mean that somehow he would be the one to be more easily hurt by her actions, you know, as opposed to the other way around. The square to the moon, between the Mars and the moon, is one of the most sensitive and volatile aspects, especially for the moon person. And it could really trigger the moon person's feelings surrounding security and feeling insecure around the Mars person, feeling like they don't really know what to expect next, or that they can't really rely on the Mars person. And again, here we have to take into account, you know, gender roles and social pressures and all that, which no doubt would have added extra weight on his head, in the sense that he probably didn't even feel like he was free to talk about the way that he felt, and maybe wasn't even able to articulate how he felt to himself, you know. It's just that he would have felt easily hurt and irritated by the things that she was doing, you know. Again, I don't know, I keep going back to psychoanalyzing Will Smith, but there it is. It's all part of the reading. So let's see, another thing that I wanted to talk about, yes, is the distance between the moon. So the distance from his moon to her moon. And again, if you look at the distance from his moon, which is in Leo, right? Sorry, no, his moon is in Libra. So the distance from his moon to her moon, which is in Libra, sorry, Leo. So her moon is in Leo and his moon is in Libra. So the distance from his moon, right, if you were to start with Libra and count in the direction of the zodiac signs, you would count 11 signs before you get to Leo. So this is not good. I have talked about this concept in Vedic astrology. Again, I will be linking all the relevant videos in the description. That according to Vedic astrology, the distance from the man's moon to the woman's moon should always be maximum 4 signs, ideally maximum 4 signs distance. At the very most, it shouldn't cross like 6 signs, meaning they shouldn't be more than directly opposite, right? Because if you look at the circle, opposition means 180 degrees distance, right? So if, his moon is in Libra, 27 degrees, this means that the ideal wife person for him would be someone who has moon in Aries, 27 degrees, and less than 43 degrees, less than 43 minutes. So that the distance wouldn't be more than 180 degrees. Because if it crosses this barrier, it basically means that He is too, how should I put it, blind. Maybe that's not a nice way to put it, but sort of like that. Basically, he's too blind to her emotions, or he's not emotions necessarily, but yeah, emotions, emotional needs, moods and everything, because that's what the moon signifies in every person's horoscope. So in any case, when the distance from the woman's moon to the man's moon is shorter than the other way around, she tends to become kind of like a mother figure, which is very frustrating for women, because she is going to start to feel like the man in question doesn't really understand her, doesn't understand her needs, is not able to, anticipate her and meet her halfway. Just to give you an example, like if a man has a very, if a man's moon is very close to the woman's moon, let's say within less than 30 degrees, it would mean that he is very sensitive to her needs, so he would be the kind of partner that already waits for her at home with her favorite meal or something, and prepares a bubble bath for her when she gets home from work or something, you know what I mean? And he already like pays attention to every little thing that she needs, that she wants and everything, so he is willing to give her everything. So this pampering, this comforting sort of energy, which is very important for women. Again, I'm taking into account gender roles here because this is about biology, right? Women need to feel more secure in a relationship as opposed to a man. So for a man, relationships are not an issue of safety. So men rarely feel physically threatened or emotionally threatened, maybe emotionally, but I don't know. Physically, they rarely feel threatened by women. So they don't care that much if the woman is attentive to his needs, right? They might care, don't get me wrong, from a romantic point of view, but it's not as much of a biological imperative, because their safety doesn't depend on whether the woman is attentive to his needs, you know what I mean? Whereas for a woman, it is, right? So if women feel like the man is very attentive, very caring, understands her moods, her needs, then she will start to relax and feel more secure around him and safe and all that. So it leads to her feeling more comfortable and safe in the relationship and opening up and becoming more feminine and all that, right? So it's seen as a positive thing when the distance from the man's moon to the woman's moon is shorter than 4 degrees, right? So 4 degrees means about 120 degrees of on the circle, 4 signs, sorry, not degrees. Again, this would mean that if a man has moon in 0 degrees Aries, then he should date a woman who has her moon in 0 degrees Cancer, ideally, and not more than that, right? Because that's about 120 degrees. Actually, I think 0 degrees Leo. I'm not 100% sure. I can't calculate out of my head, but you know what I mean, right? This is a general idea. So in their situation is the other way around. So she is the one who's distant. So the distance from her moon to his moon is less than 2 signs. So about 60 degrees of arc, right? Whereas the distance from his moon to her moon is about 330 degrees, right? Because you have 360 on a circle. So, clearly she is the one who's actually more attuned to his needs emotionally. So that would, again, make her feel like probably like she is the one who is actually the caretaker on an emotional level, and that she understands him and she anticipates his needs, but not the other way around, So this would turn out to be really frustrating over time, definitely. And also taking into account the fact that she also has her Venus conjunct his Ketu would definitely explain why she started to lose attraction and affection in this relationship. Another thing that is maybe not the most, not the strongest aspect is something that but something worth mentioning is that they have Mars placements that are in quincunx again. So that's an in conjunction. So she has Mars in Capricorn, he has Mars in Leo. So these signs don't really have anything to do with one another. They don't really have much in common. So this would show that they have very different ways of approaching things, different ways of going about achieving their goals and their desires. Could have been differences even in biorhythm, in physical needs, even with respect to intimacy, and also differences in energy levels, vitality, and all that, right? So this would have added to the annoyances and maybe feeling out of sync at times in the relationship. On the more positive side, though, they do have a harmonious contact between Mars and Sun. So she has her Mars in Capricorn trine his Sun in Virgo. And yeah, and well, his Mars is semi-sextile to her Sun. Not very strong, but it counts a little bit. In any case, it's better than having a inharmonious aspect like the square or the opposition. So because they have like lightly supportive contacts between the Sun and Mars, it would show the ability to still function together, as a team and not step on each other's toes when it comes to, achieving their goals, and actually not too many ego clashes considering these aspects, not directly, at least. I'm going to see what the composite chart has to say about this, though. Maybe I'm going to get more clues about this. But yeah, pretty much these are the main themes that I see with respect to their house overlays. This part of the synastry is done. And looking at let me check. Yeah, looking at the composite chart now. So if we look at the composite chart, first of all, what stands out is that they have a huge cluster. Well, a big cluster, maybe not huge, but with respect to composite charts, this is as good as it gets. Having 4 planets conjunct one another, this would definitely explain why they were together for such a long time, because, they have like Sun, Moon, Venus, and Mercury conjunct one another. So even though they have, chart overlays and inter aspects that maybe are not the greatest, they do have some aspects that show compatibility and a kind of a glue between the two of them. But ultimately, I think in this situation is the composite chart that actually made them stay together. Not only that, but if you notice, this conjunction is falling in Virgo, right? So they have 4 planets conjunct falling in Virgo in the composite. And in the natal charts, each of them also have Sun in Virgo, which would explain why they were both very much attached to this relationship and felt like the relationship somehow led to the fulfillment of their desires. Actually, let me check another thing. I don't think that I have looked at this, so I just want to look at their Dharmakarakas. So her Dharmakaraka is the Sun. Okay, explains a lot, right? So she definitely wants a man who is like traditionally masculine, who is also, displays leadership. Here's another thing. This would actually hint to why she felt disappointed in him, because bear in mind that he has the Sun-Ketu conjunct her Sun, okay, which also happens to be her Dharmakaraka. So my impression is that when she got together with him before or maybe when she even noticed him, right, she saw him as this really kind of confident, outgoing guy who really seemed to embody all of these Sun qualities that she wanted in a partner. But then meanwhile, he has this Sun-Ketu conjunction, which makes him very insecure, and, probably once she got to know him, realized that he, his inner core is actually pretty shaky and malleable, and that he was not what he seemed. So she started to become disappointed, I think, to some extent. And so this is her Dharmakaraka. And then from his perspective, let's see, the Dharmakaraka is Saturn. Not a coincidence, right? I mean, explains a lot. Not that it's not a coincidence. But Saturn is falling in Aries, right? The planet with the lowest degrees is 0 degrees Aries. And she is a little bit older than him, if I'm not mistaken. No, she's not older. No, but she does embody that Saturn energy, because, again, her Saturn is falling on his ascendant, right? So she symbolizes that stabilizing energy that he craves in a partner. Stabilizing, serious, career-oriented, status-conscious, everything that Saturn cares about and stands for, right? So she embodies that energy for him. especially since, like I said, so her Saturn is activating his ascendant, and it's also aspecting, his Mars and potentially other planets as well. Let me check. So her Saturn is in Taurus. Yeah, trine his sun. Okay, so trine his sun, square his Mars and Jupiter. And yeah, casting a small sextile to the North Node, which is the Rahu, but that doesn't count. But overall, yes, she has a strong Saturnian influence on his horoscope. So anyway, this is just what I wanted to check from the natal charts because I remembered now. So going back to the composite, right? So they have this strong conjunction, which explains a lot. The fact that they're both invested in the relationship, right? Because of the Virgo energy and also because of the Libra. See, here's the thing. They also have Libra energy. Oh, wow. So they have the Mars-Jupiter conjunction in the composite chart, which he also has in his natal chart, the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So this conjunction would show that together they feel like they could grow, that they are going to have more opportunities, that they're going to be happier, that they're going to expand their wealth and everything. Their luck is going to expand. And that definitely happened when you think about it. When they got together, I'm sure that for each of them, their fame only grew, their status only grew, their wealth and everything. And they probably had extra opportunities because of the fact that they were together. Jupiter here also being conjunct Mars would also add to fertility to some extent. At least there is one conjunction involving Jupiter that would definitely add to it. And let's see another thing. But what we also see in the composite is the fact that they have Mars, opposite Saturn again. And they also have Jupiter opposite Saturn. See, Jupiter opposite Saturn can show a lot of ups and downs. Can show like there's inconsistency with respect to their faith in the relationship in itself. Like there can be times when you are very invested in the relationship as a couple, and then there are times when you just feel like throwing it out the window, like basically folding and just quitting. Which, again, if you think about it, tends to resemble their dynamic. And another thing that stands out to me in the composite is that they have Rahu in the ascendant, which no doubt would, be a great plus from the perspective of Jada-Pinkett's attitude, because she has the Mars Rahu conjunction in her natal chart, so she's the one who is very status conscious and wants to have more wealth and more visibility and all that. And Rahu in the first house would definitely show that. So because Rahu shows how people perceive you as a couple, and the ascendant shows how you are perceived as a couple. So Rahu in Aquarius in the ascendant would definitely show that they really stand out as a couple, that also that they would stand out as a bit weird because of this Aquarius and Rahu energy. Non-conventional, okay, let me not use the word weird, but non-conventional, basically a modern family, according to today's standards, because we are living in the age of Aquarius. Won't get into that too much. But also what I wanted to say is that, so if you look at their individual charts, she doesn't have any planets in Libra, right? So no Libra here in her natal placements, but he has Moon in Libra, Mercury. So he has Moon, Mercury, and Venus all conjunct in Libra. And now if you look at the composite chart, they have this Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Libra. So because they have this conjunction, right? So he has this conjunction to the composite chart. It shows that he is a lot more invested in this relationship than she is. So it shows, especially since it's his Moon and his Venus, which are the softer, vulnerable sides, that have to do with emotion and affection and how getting your needs met and all that, Moon and Venus. It would definitely show that he was the one who was, counting on the relationship to work out, and also felt like this relationship would meet his needs emotionally and give him the love that he looks for, because it's, this composite Mars Jupiter is conjunct his Venus and also his moon, right? So definitely would explain why, again, he may have overreacted about anything to do with this connection. And again, maybe like other people have said with respect to that incident at the Oscars, that he was already severely heartbroken and hurt, and, it was like the last straw or something. Anyway, yeah, this is all about psychoanalyzing Will Smith. I was going to say something else about... No, yeah, this is the part that I wanted to say about the Libra energy. So he's definitely the one who's more invested, I would say. Oh yeah, another thing that I wanted to say, now I remember also about psychoanalyzing Will Smith, is that he has the Moon-Venus conjunction. I've also talked about this conjunction, and also he has Venus debilitated, all right? I'm going to drop that part. Okay, I'm just going to link the related videos in the video description. You can find more details about that, where, where I discuss what Venus shows in a man's chart with respect to the kind of wife that he's going to get. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm just going to dwell on the Moon-Venus conjunction here a little bit. I have done a video about this in the natal chart, and it said that people who have this conjunction tend to have problems in relationships because they don't even really see the other person clearly, or they're not able to even get over themselves in order to really relate to the other person as a human being, or as a they're not able to balance in relationships. It's like they either make the relationship all about themselves, or they make the relationship all about the other person. And my guess is that he is more like a little bit... Well, actually, no, I couldn't guess. I was going to say that he's more in the second category, but it could have gone either way. Like, in any case, I really go in depth there and also give some examples of famous people. I think Tom Cruise also has this. So in Tom Cruise's case, it's obvious that he's the kind of person that makes relationships all about himself. In any case, with this conjunction in the natal chart, it tends to show that, the person has struggles having real connections and relationships because they're just very self-absorbed in getting their own needs met and all that. They're all like in their heads, basically, and they have a hard time seeing the other person as, seeing their partner as another person that they have to balance with. Instead, they can, see their partner in a totally idealized way, or just see them as an extension of themselves, which doesn't really make for a real healthy relationship. So, yes, and so he has this conjunction. Sorry, did I say that he has... Oh my god, I think I made a mistake. Wait a minute. No, I said that he has, Moon, Venus, and Mercury. No, I didn't make a mistake. It's the same. I just said that it's in Virgo, when in reality it's a Libra. I was looking at the composite chart, sorry. So he has, in his natal chart, he has Moon, Venus, and Mercury in Libra. So it's not debilitated. Actually, Venus is really strong. So this would show that he gets a wife who supports him in his path in life, which has turned out to be true, at least materially, that, after marriage, he started getting more prosperity, and she supported his career and all that. But not without her own interest, of course. But in any case, he has this conjunction, like I was saying, so the conjunction would play out as this, tendency to be self-absorbed and not see the other person as a human being, or like as a separate entity that he needs to balance with. And it also tends to show kind of mommy issues as well, because the moon is the mother archetype, Venus is the wife archetype. So when a man has this, especially again a straight man, would show that the wife and the mother archetype are somehow blended together. So it would explain again why he was drawn to a woman who has such strong energy and also has her moon closer to his moon rather than the other way around. Like maybe he was like subconsciously looking for a woman who would meet his needs, like on a very basic emotional level, kind of like a mother figure, which again would totally explain why she started losing attraction for him, but won't get into biology and all that. Yeah, but this is pretty much what I can say with respect to the composite chart and with respect to the synastry. But another thing that I wanted to mention briefly is the Guna Milan or the Ashtakut analysis, which, like I said, this is a very Vedic astrology thing. And if you look at it, I mean, this calculator also gave an overall score. It's not like the be-all and end-all of compatibility, of course not, in Vedic astrology, but it is something that's useful. I've talked about this in other videos. I'm pretty sure I talked about it in the last video where I did a famous couple synastry, which was a long time ago, but I did mention that it's useful to check, you know, and if you look at their Ashtakut here or Guna Milan situation, it's not great, and the calculator gave them a total of 18.5 points out of 36. Not great, just over average. Okay, so it could have been worse, definitely, but it could definitely be better, especially for a long-term relationship. And if you look at a lot of these, I mean, 4 of these are scored as 0, you know. So with respect to, and it says there on the right, you know, it shows which areas of their lives are most affected by this score. So you see a 0 for work, a 0 for dominance, a 0 for compatibility overall, and a 0 for guna level. So again, this is because they have, they have different, I won't get into this theory, I've talked about it a million times before, but, you know, it's about these concepts in Vedic astrology about, you know, the devas and I think it's called, gunas, literally, like, the fact that the nakshatras are divided into devas or godlike, manusya or human, and rakshasa or demon-like. And the theory is that you ideally shouldn't marry someone who is in a different Gana, ideally, right? Now, I see that they gave a 0 score here, but according to some other theories that I've read, it's okay for a Rakshasa man to marry a Manusya woman, but not the other way around. So the theory being that the man should always have like a worse or a rougher nakshatra than the woman. Basically, I think that's the general idea. But in any case, okay, so it's not an ideal situation. And they do have 7 out of 7 for love, and they do have 8 health. So the love score, no doubt, is also reflected by all of the Venus conjunctions, including Venus being conjunct 3 other planets, Moon, the Sun, and Mercury in the composite chart. That's definitely a lot of affection there, and a lot of basic compatibility. I mean, let's not forget that the Moon Sun conjunction in the composite is one of the best aspects that you can hope for, because it shows this perfect harmonious blend between the masculine and the feminine energies of their psyches and stuff. So yes, it would definitely explain why they stay together for such a long time. But aside from the love and the health, and again, the health score or the nadi would also definitely explain them being able to conceive naturally. I mean, I'm thinking it was natural. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't researched their lives to that extent, but you know, they were able to conceive. So I've mentioned this in some other video that if this health score would have been lower, it would have potentially shown, you know, like trouble with having kids, you know, basically. So yes, this is overall what I can show. So pretty much the main characteristics, the main assessment. So I'm really curious to hear what you think, or maybe you will notice things that I have missed. Please comment in the comment section. And yeah, this has been pretty much my analysis. And if you have enjoyed it, again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done so already, please click on the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in the membership options, you can check the introduction phase of this video. I have explained them in more detail. And if you're interested in a private consultation, you can email me at the email address that I left in the video description for more details. And last but not least, I also have a tarot channel, and I will be linking it in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. So go ahead and check it out. Maybe subscribe if you're interested in tarot. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you at my next video.